waiter sat down my son's third whiskey, and I heard him say the words that would end our family. Once she's in Sunset Meadows, we can finally get access to the accounts. I was 68 years old, sitting 3 feet away at the same restaurant table, and my children were talking about me like I'd already died. My daughter Vanessa leaned in, voice low but not low enough. "How long do you think before she, Dementia patients don't last long in those places," my other son Derek said, cutting his steak. 18 months, maybe 2 years. Then we split everything 3 ways and move on. I took a sip of water and kept my hands perfectly steady. Because here's what my children didn't know. I wasn't demented, I wasn't confused, and the woman they were planning to rob and discard had been recording every word they'd said for the past 6 months. My name is Catherine Walsh. I'm a retired real estate attorney from Portland, Maine, and this is the story of how my children tried to steal $4 million and put me in a nursing home to die, and how I made them build the place that would inherit everything they thought was theirs. Let me take you back 3 hours before that dinner. I was in my study going through old photo albums when I heard Vanessa's voice in the hallway talking on her phone. "No, trust me, the lawyer said once we get her declared incompetent, we can take over everything. The house alone is worth $600,000. I sat very still. "She's getting worse, left the stove on twice last week, forgot Derek's birthday. It's perfect timing." Except I hadn't left the stove on. I'd been testing them. 2 months earlier, I'd started noticing things. Money missing from my purse. My iPad moved when I knew exactly where I'd left it. My financial documents rifled through and carefully put back. So I'd started leaving traps. A $20 bill in my wallet marked with invisible ink. It showed up in Derek's car. My investment statements on my desk instead of the safe. The next week, Vanessa asked pointed questions about my portfolio. The stove left on was actually me turning it on, waiting for someone to notice, then watching through my phone camera as Vanessa took photos of it and texted them to her brothers. Evidence, she thought. Evidence it was, just not the kind she wanted. At the restaurant that night, I excused myself to the restroom and pulled out my phone. 6 months of recordings, dozens of text messages I'd recovered from the family computer, financial power of attorney documents they'd already drafted, just waiting for a doctor to sign the incompetency evaluation. And the kicker, an email thread between Derek and a lawyer about getting me committed to Sunset Meadows against my will. Once she's in, she won't have the capacity to contest anything. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. Gray hair I'd stopped dyeing when my husband Robert died 10 years ago, lines around my eyes from 30 years of trial law, hands that won 8-figure settlements and buried the love of my life. And I thought about the children I'd raised alone after Robert's death. How I'd paid for Derek's law school, for Vanessa's wedding when her fiancé's family couldn't afford it, for my youngest son Brian's business that failed within a year, costing me $80,000 I never asked him to repay. How I'd worked until I was 65 so they'd never have to worry about taking care of me. And how they repaid me by planning to rob me and lock me away to die. I dried my hands and walked back to the table. "I've been thinking," I said, picking up my fork. "You're right about Sunset Meadows. It's time." 3 faces lit up like Christmas morning. "Mom, that's so great," Vanessa gushed. "You're making such a mature decision." "We'll help you pack this weekend," Derek added. "Whatever you need," Brian said. I smiled and took a bite of salmon. "Actually, I've already packed." The next morning, I was gone. Not to Sunset Meadows, to a house I'd bought 8 years ago in Bar Harbor that none of them knew existed. a 3-bedroom cottage overlooking the water that I'd purchased under an LLC my children had never heard of, funded by investments they didn't know I had. I'd learned a long time ago in real estate law, never put all your assets in one place and never tell your heirs everything. I sat on the porch with my coffee and waited for my phone to ring. It took 4 hours. "Mom? Mom, where are you?" Vanessa's voice was panicked. "We came to help you pack and you're gone. Your car is here, but you're not. We called the police." "Tell them I'm fine," I said calmly. "I've simply relocated." "What? Where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you won't be able to access my bank accounts or forge my signature on documents you've already prepared." Silence. Then, "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." 6 months of recordings say otherwise. Would you like me to play the one from last night? Dementia patients don't last long in those places. That was Derek. Or we could listen to you discussing my declining mental state with that attorney you hired. I heard her breathing change. "Or," I continued, "we could discuss the $20,000 you've withdrawn from my accounts over the past year using the debit card you cloned, the one you thought I didn't notice." "Mom, I'm not finished. Brian, are you there?" "I'm here." His voice was small. "The business loan I gave you that failed, I have bank records showing you spent $40,000 on a boat, the boat I saw docked at your friend's marina." "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Derek, the retainer you paid that attorney to get me declared incompetent came from my checking account. You stole from me to pay someone to help you steal more from me. That's almost poetic." I could hear them looking at each other, probably in my kitchen, probably standing in the house they'd already started thinking of as theirs. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Tomorrow morning you'll receive a certified letter from my attorney. You have 2 choices. Choice 1, I press charges for theft, elder abuse, and fraud. You'll all go to prison. Your father would be so proud." Derek found his voice. "You wouldn't. Choice 2, you work for me. 5 years, no salary, just room and board. You'll do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. At the end, we'll discuss your inheritance. If you refuse either option, I notify the police and the Maine State Bar Association. Derek, you'll be disbarred before lunch." "This is insane," Vanessa hissed. "You tried to have me locked in a memory care facility so I'd die faster and you could split my estate. I'm offering you a chance to avoid prison. Take it or leave it, but you have 48 hours to decide." I hung up. And then I cried for the first time since finding out what they'd planned. Not because I was sad, because I'd just declared war on my own children, and there was no going back. The letter arrived the next day via my attorney, Mitchell Chen, a man I'd worked with for 30 years. It laid out everything. The recordings, the bank statements, the forged documents, the conspiracy to commit fraud, and the offer, 5 years of supervised work in exchange for suspended prosecution. Vanessa called me screaming. "You can't do this! You can't force us to—" "I can, and I did. You have 47 hours left to decide." "What work? What are you even talking about?" "You'll find out if you accept." Derek tried the lawyer approach. "This is coercion. No judge would uphold." "Then take it to court. I'll play the recordings for a jury. Let's see how sympathetic they are to 3 adults who stole from their widowed mother and tried to have her committed for profit." Brian was the one who finally broke. He showed up at my Bar Harbor house 2 days later. I watched him on my Ring camera, standing at the door, shoulders shaking. I opened it. He looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. "Is it real? All of it? The recordings? The evidence?" "Every word." "And you'd really send us to prison?" I looked at my youngest child, the one I'd rocked through nightmares after Robert died, the one who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them roses. "You tried to steal my life to fund yours, so yes, I absolutely would. He started crying. I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. It wasn't supposed to. We just needed money, and you have so much, and we thought... You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I was too old and too stupid to catch you. No, that's exactly what you thought, and you were wrong. I watched him cry on my doorstep and felt absolutely nothing. Do you accept the offer or not? He wiped his face. What's the work? You'll find out when all three of you accept. And if we do it, all 5 years, then we'll talk about your future. That's all I'm offering. He looked at the ocean behind me, at the house they didn't know I owned, at the life they thought was theirs to take. Okay, he whispered. Okay. 2 days later, all three stood in Mitchell's office and signed the agreement. 5 years of work, no salary, room and board provided. Failure to comply meant immediate prosecution with no second chance. What exactly will we be doing? Derek asked, pen hovering over the signature line. Mitchell slid a photo across the table. A dilapidated building in Portland's East End, boarded windows, crumbling brick, graffiti on the walls. This is the Mercy Street Community Center. It was a homeless shelter in the 70s. It's been abandoned for 15 years. You're going to rebuild it. Vanessa laughed, actually laughed. We're not contractors. You're going to learn. You'll work under a general contractor I've hired. You'll do manual labor. You'll gut the building, repair the foundation, replace the roof, install new electrical and plumbing. When it's done, it'll be a community resource center for elderly residents who have nowhere else to go. The irony wasn't lost on them. This is crazy, Derek said. So is trying to rob your mother. Sign or leave. They signed. The first day, I drove to the worksite to watch. They stood in front of the building in work boots they'd just bought, looking at hammers like they were alien artifacts. The contractor, a weathered man named Frank, who'd built half of Portland's affordable housing, handed Derek a hammer. Start with the interior walls. Wear your masks. Asbestos hasn't been fully cleared yet. I watched Derek, who'd graduated top of his class at Boston College Law, swing a sledgehammer at drywall and miss. Watched Vanessa, who had thrown a $40,000 wedding, lift a bucket of debris and nearly drop it on her foot. Watched Brian, who'd spent my money on a boat, try to figure out which end of a crowbar to use. And I felt something I hadn't expected. Satisfaction. Not happiness, not yet. But the cold, sharp satisfaction of watching people who treated me like garbage realize what actual garbage looked like when you had to haul it yourself. Frank walked over to where I stood by my car. They're useless, he said. I know. This gonna take longer than you think. I have time. He looked at me carefully. What did they do to you? Tried to steal everything and lock me away. Whistled low. Your own kids? My own kids. Well, he spit tobacco in a can. They're gonna earn this then. That's the idea. 3 weeks in, Derek showed up at my Bar Harbor house. I didn't let him in. We can't do this. It's inhumane. We're working 12-hour days in a condemned building. You can quit any time. Prison's always available. Mom, please. You have nothing to say to me that I want to hear. Get back to work. I watched him drive away and poured myself a glass of wine. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from something else. Doubt. Was I punishing them or destroying them? Was this justice or cruelty? I called my therapist, Dr. Sarah Brennan, at 9 p.m. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. What would the right thing look like? I don't know. Forgiveness? Understanding? Catherine, what did they do? They stole money. No, what exactly did they do? I took a breath. They stole money. They planned to have me declared incompetent. They were going to put me in a facility and wait for me to die so they could access my estate. And you're giving them an alternative to prison. I'm making them do manual labor for 5 years. You're teaching them that actions have consequences. That's not cruelty. That's parenting. They're adults who treated you like you were already dead. You don't owe them comfort. I hung up and stared at the ocean for hours. She was right, but it still hurt. 6 months in, something changed. I drove to the site for my weekly inspection and found Derek holding a resident's hand. Not a worker, a resident. There was a small encampment of homeless people living in tents behind the building. Frank had been letting them use the site's porta potties and water supply. This man, maybe 70, maybe 90, was having some kind of episode, shaking, crying, and Derek was just sitting with him. "You're okay, you're safe, I'm right here," Derek was saying. "You're safe, I'm right here." I stood there watching my son, who called me a burden 6 months ago, comfort a stranger with more gentleness than he'd shown me in years. When the man calmed, Derek helped him back to his tent. Then he saw me. His face went carefully blank. He has PTSD, Vietnam. Frank says he's been living here for 3 years. Why were you helping him? Because he needed help. We stared at each other. That's not an answer. Derek's jaw tightened. You want me to say I've changed, that I've learned my lesson? I haven't. I'm angry every day. I'm exhausted. My hands are covered in scars from construction work I didn't train for. But that man needed help and I was there, so I helped him. Don't make it more than it is. He walked away, but I'd seen his hands, and they were shaking. 9 months in, Vanessa stopped showing up. Frank called me at 6 a.m. She's not here. Derek and Brian are working, but your daughter's gone. I drove to the apartment I'd rented for them, a small 3-bedroom in a building I owned, another property they didn't know existed. Vanessa answered the door in pajamas, eyes swollen. I can't do it anymore, she said. I can't. Then you go to prison. I know. She just stood there, waiting for me to call the police. I didn't move. Why? Because I'm not strong like them. I can't swing hammers and carry drywall and pretend this is normal. I wake up every morning and want to die. Something in her voice stopped me. Show me your hands. She held them out. Blisters, scars, one nail half torn off. When did that happen? Last week, caught it on rebar. Frank said I should have gone to the hospital, but we don't have insurance anymore because we're not employees. We're criminals working off debt. She started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did, but I can't keep doing this. I looked at my daughter, at the woman who'd planned my imprisonment, at the girl who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. Get dressed, I said. What? Get dressed, you're coming with me. I drove her to my Bar Harbor house, made her tea, let her sit on the porch overlooking the water. This is where you've been? She asked. This is where I've been. It's beautiful. It's mine. I bought it 8 years ago with money I made from investments you didn't know I had. I learned a long time ago to never put all my assets in one place. She looked at me. So we never would have gotten everything, even if the plan had worked? No. You would have gotten my house and about $600,000 in accessible accounts. The other $3.4 million is in trusts, LLCs, and properties you didn't know existed. Jesus. You tried to rob someone who spent 30 years as a real estate attorney. That was your first mistake. She laughed. It was a broken sound. What was the second? Thinking I wouldn't notice. We sat in silence. Are you going to send me to prison? She asked. Do you want me to? I want this to be over. I want to go back to before we fucked everything up, but I can't, so I don't know what I want. I sipped my tea. You have a choice. Go back to work tomorrow, or I make the call. But if you go back, you finish all 5 years. No quitting, no complaining. You work. Why? Because quitting is easy, and you've been choosing easy your whole life. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. You stole from me because it was easier than working. You planned to lock me away because it was easier than taking care of me. You wanted me dead because it was easier than loving me while I was alive. Don't talk to me about fair." She was crying again. "I don't know if I can do this." "Then don't. Call it quits right now and we'll drive to the police station together." I pulled out my phone. She stared at it, then at me, then the ocean. "I'll go back," she whispered. 14 months in, the building started to look like something. New roof, windows, the brick cleaned and repointed, interior walls framed. Frank called me with an update. "They're doing good work, real good. Derek's learning electrical, Brian's got a knack for carpentry, Vanessa's handling project management better than some guys I've paid." "Are they complaining?" "Every day, but they're still showing up." I drove to the site, found all three covered in drywall dust installing insulation. They didn't see me at first. I heard Derek say, "Remember when we thought this would be easy?" Brian laughed. "Remember when we thought Mom was too old to catch us?" Vanessa added quietly, "Remember when we were people she could be proud of?" Silence. Then Brian, "Maybe we can get back there." Derek, "Not while we're here." Vanessa, "Maybe because we're here." I left before they could see me, drove home, and cried until I couldn't breathe because my children were changing, and I didn't know if I could forgive them for making me do this to make it happen. 2 years in, the money ran out. Not my money, the construction budget. I'd allocated $800,000 for the rebuild. We'd spent $900. Frank showed me the numbers. Foundation was worse than we thought. Electrical needed a full replacement. We're over. How much to finish? $200,000, maybe $250. I looked at the building, half finished, so close. I said, "Stop work." "What?" "Stop. Today. Send them home." That night, all three showed up at Bar Harbor. I'd never given them the address. "How did you find me?" "Public records," Derek said. "You bought it under Walsh Properties, LLC. Took me 6 hours to trace it." "Why are you here?" Vanessa stepped forward. "Frank said you're stopping construction, that we're out of money." "That's right." "So what happens to us?" I looked at them. 2 years of construction had changed them physically. Derek had muscles from hauling materials. Vanessa's soft hands were calloused. Brian stood differently, like he'd learned to carry weight. "I've terminated the agreement early." Their faces went white. "You're sending us to prison?" Brian asked. "No, I'm letting you go. The building is half finished. I don't have the budget to complete it. You're free." Derek's voice shook. "Free to what?" "Whatever you want. The agreement is void. You're no longer under my supervision. Go live your lives." They looked at each other. Then Vanessa said something I'll never forget. "We want to finish it." "What?" "The building. We want to finish it." "I don't have the money." "We'll fundraise," Derek said. "We'll get grants, we'll find donors, but we're not walking away from it now." "Why?" Brian's voice was quiet. "Because for the first time in our lives, we're building something instead of taking it." I stared at my children. "Are you choosing this?" "We're choosing this," Vanessa said. "No salary, no guarantee I'll ever forgive you. You could spend 3 more years finishing a building and still be written out of my will." "We know," Derek said. They stood on my porch, waiting, and I realized I'd already decided. "There's $250,000 in discretionary funds I haven't touched. If you can show me a real plan, grants, community support, proof this matters to someone besides me, I'll release it." "Deal," Vanessa said immediately. 3.5 years in, the building opened, not as Mercy Street Community Center, as Walsh Community Resources, named after my late husband, not me. It housed a senior day program, legal aid clinic, job training center, and emergency shelter. The ribbon cutting was on a Saturday in April. The mayor came, local news, 200 community members, and my 3 children, standing in work clothes they'd learned to wear for 1,000 days, holding scissors they'd learned to use for more than cutting people down. Derek spoke. This building was built by people who did terrible things. We stole from someone we loved. We planned to abandon her. We treated her like she was already dead. The crowd was silent. We gave us a choice, prison or this, and we chose this, not because we wanted to, but because we were cowards who didn't want to go to jail. Vanessa stepped forward. But somewhere in the last 3 years, it stopped being about avoiding punishment. We met people who needed help. We learned what it's like to build instead of take. We became different people. Brian finished. We don't deserve forgiveness. We don't deserve our mother's love, but we're asking this community to use what we've built, because maybe something good can come from people who did something unforgivable. They cut the ribbon. People cheered, and I stood in the back, watching the children who tried to bury me help build something that would outlive us all. That night, they came to Bar Harbor. All 3, no warning. We have something to say, Derek started. I'm listening. Vanessa pulled out papers, legal documents. We're renouncing any claim to your estate, all of us. We had an attorney draw it up. Everything goes to Walsh Community Resources when you die. We get nothing. I looked at the papers. Why? Because we spent 3 years learning what you built, the properties, the investments, the careful planning. You didn't just get lucky. You worked for 40 years to create security, and we tried to steal it in 18 months. We don't deserve it, Vanessa said. We never did. Derek added, we're asking for something else instead. What? Let us keep working at the center. Pay us minimum wage like any other employee. Let us prove we've changed by doing the work, not by inheriting money we didn't earn. I looked at these 3 people, at the children who'd betrayed me, at the adults who'd rebuilt themselves. No, I said. Their faces fell. You'll work at the center, but not for minimum wage. You'll be salaried managers. Derek, you'll run the legal clinic. Vanessa, you'll manage operations. Brian, you'll handle fundraising and donor relations. Mom. And when I die, you'll each inherit $250,000. Not millions, not everything, but enough to start over if you need to, and not so much that you'll stop working. Vanessa started crying. The rest goes to the center. $3 million for expansion, endowment, and permanent operations. You'll serve on the board, but you won't control it. The community will. Why are you doing this? Derek asked. Because you're right. You don't deserve forgiveness just for building a building, but you've spent 3 years proving you can change. That's worth something. Brian's voice broke. We're so sorry. I know. But sorry doesn't erase what you did. It just means you finally understand why it mattered. 4 years later, I'm 72 years old. I still live in Bar Harbor, still have coffee on the porch every morning. My children visit once a month. We have dinner. We talk about the center's programs and the people it's helped. We don't talk about Thanksgiving 4 years ago when they planned my death. We don't need to. Because here's what I learned. Some betrayals are so deep that forgiveness isn't possible, but coexistence is. We're not the family we were. We'll never be that again. But we're a family that builds things now instead of tearing them down. And maybe that's enough. Last week, Derek called me. The legal clinic just helped a woman whose children were trying to get her declared incompetent so they could access her accounts. Did you help her? We got her an attorney, set up protections. She's safe now. Good. Silence. I think about it every day, he said quietly. What we tried to do to you. I know. Does it ever stop hurting? No, but it hurts less. I'm sorry, Mom. I know. This morning I got a call from Vanessa. The center's expansion is complete. We added 20 beds to the emergency shelter and a full medical clinic. We're naming it the Robert Walsh Memorial Health Center, after Dad. He'd like that. Mom, thank you. For what? For not giving up on us when you should have. I looked out at the ocean. I didn't do it for you. I did it because the alternative was watching my children go to prison, and I wasn't strong enough for that. That's not true. It is. I didn't save you. I saved myself from having to watch what you'd become. She was quiet for a moment. Either way, thank you. After we hung up, I pulled out the recordings I'd kept from 4 years ago, listened to my children planning my imprisonment, listened to them laughing about my death, and then I deleted them. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I didn't need proof anymore of who they used to be. I had proof now of who they'd become, and that was enough. My name is Catherine Walsh. 4 years ago, my children tried to steal $4 million and lock me in a nursing home to die. I gave them a choice: prison or 5 years of hard labor building a community center. They chose labor, and somewhere in the rubble and drywall dust and exhaustion, they became people I could stand to be in the same room with. Not the people I raised, not the people I wanted, but people who understood, finally, that the world doesn't owe you anything, that what you build matters more than what you inherit, and that some betrayals cost you everything, including the love of the person who gave you life. They paid that cost every single day for 3.5 years, and they're still paying it. Because my will is filed, my estate is planned, and when I die, my children will inherit $250,000 each, while $3 million goes to the community center they built with their own hands. They'll be comfortable, but they'll never be rich, and they'll spend the rest of their lives knowing they traded $4 million for the chance to prove they weren't the people who tried to rob their mother. Some days, I think that's justice. Other days, I think it's mercy. Most days, I think it's both. And I sleep just fine.
So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between your peace and someone else's comfort? Drop your story in the comments. You're not alone. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Retaliate for more real stories about betrayal, boundaries, and what happens when quiet people finally stop being quiet. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes one story is all it takes to realize you're not the villain for walking away. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And remember, the strongest thing you can say isn't "I forgive you." Sometimes it's just, "I'm done." See you in the next story.